We love you!
Hello and welcome to Tribe Talk, the Galway Hurling podcast, with me, Patrick Earley and David Connors, where each week we'll discuss and divulge all the goings-on in Galway Hurling. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the club scene and of course focusing on inter-county, in this, Shane O'Neill's first year at the helm, all of which we'll do in the company of some special guests and former Galway greats. So do come along and join us on Tribe Talk, Galway's dedicated hurling podcast.
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Tribe Talk. I'm joined this week again by, as usual, my co-host Patrick Earley. It's back from a stint away, staycation, as they say. A bit of a break,
rest.
Yeah. Well earned. And this week, I suppose, I'm delighted to be joined by Cappataggle stalwart. We won't say the word farmer because it might be over yet. But
That's it, hopefully.
and former Galway under-21, Paul Claffey. Paul, delighted to have you.
Thanks for having me, lads. Thanks for having me. Granted, good to be here.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
how are you keeping, Paul? You're based out in Vietnam at the moment. Yeah.
I am indeed.
Yeah.
I am indeed in Hanoi. So it's a bit different from Cappataggle now, to be fair. But yeah, look, I'm enjoying it. It's a different world, but like loving life. So yeah, can't complain.
And plenty of Irish around out there, Paul. I believe it's probably a country that's grown in that regard with Irish people moving out there.
Oh, unbelievable! Yeah, you wouldn't there's an awful amount. When I came out first, I thought there wouldn't be that many, but there's a massive Irish culture out here. The big GA club. I'll give a shout out to the Viet Celts. And there is, it's grown well, this summer now it obviously hasn't grown because there's no one coming in, but previously there was loads of people coming in, yeah, lots, big Irish culture.
That's something I was going to ask actually, because you hear of all like lads out in Australia and Dubai and obviously America and the GA culture out there, but Vietnam is not something that you hear much about. But so obviously there is that GA culture out there still, as you say.
100%, yeah. Like it wouldn't be the same way as your bank or your maybe not your Bangkok or your Singapore or Hong Kong, these places, but they'd be the real big the stalwarts, I suppose, of the Asian GA games. But between us, our Saigon and Hanoi, we're getting up there. It's just we wouldn't be as well funded as these bigger cities, but yeah, we're getting there. And if anyone's listening out there, big companies, you might give us an old shot.
And you mentioned you're just over 2 years or just under 2 years out there now, and what was kind of the initial appeal for you to head out to Vietnam ahead of other countries, we'll say?
Yeah, well, initially it was either Dubai or Abu Dhabi I was thinking of, but actually two lads I knew from college, actually Niall O'Brien, Westmeath hurler, he came out here, and another lad, Liam Kilcline, I knew from college, and they were out here, and they kind of sold the idea to me, really, and yeah, I've been out here since. So I kind of wanted something different as well, so yeah, I'm in love with it. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Good stuff. And it's weeks like this, I suppose, leading up to county finals that this is the time where you miss home, really, Paul, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, like I had a couple of a lot of tossing and turning in bed there now recently, but like I kind of made my bed now, so I have to lie in it. You know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
But look, I wish the lads the best of luck, and I hope they go all the way. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, I suppose the fact that you're there now, the 2 years, and you're settled into it, life moves on, I suppose. And probably the first couple of months, and even last year's semi-final, probably have been harder, we'll say, than this year's for you missing out.
That's it. Like, to be honest, probably the hardest one was the one in 2018, probably, because I thought we were over the line almost, and even for me personally, I missed the free at the end just to get the draw. So that was the toughest one to take, really, I think, for me personally. But I was just glad that Mellows were not on our side this year. That was the only thing I was glad of. But
I see. David had a tweet up there a few weeks ago. Even after Mellows got knocked out, he was saying his Cappy would still find somewhere to draw them in semi-final.
I've seen that myself. Actually, I've seen that myself.
The prize for avoiding Mellows is a date with 3 in a row chasing St. Thomas's. So doesn't exactly get easier, does it?
No, that's for sure. Like It's it's when I seen the Thomas's draw, I was thinking it's obviously it's probably the toughest draw there. I think realistically, but like if you're going to win the county final, you're going to have to beat the best teams out there. So it is what it is, I suppose. It might be a good thing to get them in the semi-final. You never know. So
and for yourself, Paul, when you left, you're leaving off the back of 2 county semi-final appearances in a row. You're leaving a club that have aspirations of going that next step or two and winning a county title. That factors into your decision, I presume, and probably makes it easier than, would say, to leave a kind of middle of the road sort of a poor senior A team or a mediocre senior B team or even an intermediate team. It's pretty harder to leave that sort of a setup.
I was to be like it was a massive had a massive bearing on me whether I was going to leave or not, and it was weighing heavily on my mind for a long time whether I'd go or whether I'd stay, and it was one of those things where I'd always wanted to go away and I'd always wanted to travel and see a bit of the world, and I've done an awful lot of traveling since I've been here. So it's just one of those things where I had to weigh it up, and I'm not getting any younger, I suppose. I turned 27 there a couple of weeks ago, so it was one of those things where I wanted to do it, and I'm happy I did it. To be honest, I feel like grown out here, and so it's one of those things. But like, I do want to go back. Hopefully, I'll be back there next year, and we will be maybe defending a county title. You never know.
Yeah, to be a nice sort of setup to come back into. Right, the only thing is you'd have a lot of work to get your place.
That's the other side of the coin. That's the other side of the coin.
Happy complaints as you know, but
that's it.
We're a while away from that yet, and look at even. I know if I suppose getting the championship finished this year is the priority first and foremost, then we can kind of forget about it, and hopefully we're all in a better situation for things to come next year, and you get a proper run of the championship again,
Yeah, that's for sure. It's been a bit of a mad one, but like I mean, fair play to the way it's all been run off, and this and online has been a godsend for the likes of me out here now, like just being able to watch the games, it's been unreal, like so just fair play to everyone involved, because it's been unreal for the likes of me, like I said.
Yeah, because we've been talking about the streaming and ice Dave, in fairness over the last few weeks, but it's kind of, and even for us, say, gee, it's great to have access to these games, but we still have access to, we can obviously go to some games, and we have the radio there to go avail the updates, and we have the newspaper coming out every week for all the reports and whatnot. But it's for lads like Paul and lads abroad that you really like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge addition really this year. I suppose, Paul, how important is it for you, like time wise? I suppose, do you get up live to watch the Cappy games, or how does it work for you? Or you just kind of, do you wake up the next morning and rush to check the score, or how do you keep up to date with how Cappy are getting on?
Well, it all depends on what time the game is at, really, I suppose. Like if I'm in work, it's hard enough to put the stream up on the TV in the class. But I do have the What's the Score app on the phone if I can't watch it, and then if I can get back, I'll throw it up on the TV there, and I'll stream as many of the games as I can. That's how
For yourself, Paul, when you left as well in 2018, you were off the back of 2 brilliant years yourself personally for Cappy. You won two club All-Stars. Had you aspirations in your own head of getting a Galway senior squad?
Yeah, look, it was when I was in there in 2016. I was in there that Micheál Dunhu's first year. I don't know. I wasn't mature enough at the time really to give it my all. Like I felt like coming out of it, like I felt like you need to, when you're there, you need to go all in. Like you need to go balls out. Just like give it your all. And I felt I was kind of half in, half out. And then near the end of the year, before the Tipperary game, I went over on my ankle in Kenny Park when we were training, and I did a right job on my ankle. Tore 4 ligaments, like 2 either side. And that was I was 9 months almost coming back from that after surgery.
Yeah.
So, I did kind of have half aspirations, and then I kind of wanted to go traveling. And to be honest, I had traveling in my mind since I was a young lad, so that kind of took over really, Patrick. Yeah, to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, and in fairness, as you say, like because once you're in a county setup, and if you want to get established in there and make a name for yourself, it does it changes your life really. It changes how you conduct your business day to day. Even if you compare it to being a top club hurler, it still pulls apart really, like, isn't it?
No, it's chalk and cheese. Like, I know the club game has come on leaps and bounds, but the intercounty game, it's another level altogether up. Like, you have to, yeah, your life has to revolve around it. You know, you're planning you're planning who you're meeting, you're planning where you're eating, what you're eating, you're bringing your food. Yeah, your life revolves around it. So yeah.
And looking, I suppose we'll look ahead to Sunday, Paul, and you know, for a team, for yourselves, this is your fourth semi-final in a row, and probably fair to say, of the 4 years you've been in a semi-final, this is the year where you're actually probably longest odds, you're the biggest underdog is going into this one probably.
Yeah, and probably with for a reason, I would say. Like, Thomases are one of the best club teams in Ireland. Like, and they're one of the best club teams I've ever seen hurl. Anyways, so, but like, in saying that, like, we're going in and like, we have, some people might say we haven't much to play for, but I disagree. Like, I think I think we've everything to play for. Like there's a solid group of lads there that group has been in the trenches now for 4 or 5 years, and I think it'll be a right good game, because there'll be Cappy lads won't be holding back. I can tell you that anyway.
Well, that's the thing. Like, coming up against a team like Thomas's, you know, for Cappy, you know, they know themselves they're going in as underdogs, and it's a case of, you know, throwing off the shackles and having a cut off them, because they've nothing to lose and they've everything to gain, as you mentioned yourself. And it's the kind of thing, it's the kind of game where a team like yourselves, the lads, they're going to rise to it. And I'd be expecting myself the best performance you've given all year. I'd expect it to come out on Sunday.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we had a couple of mediocre performances, I'd say. I caught the Loughrea game earlier on, and I know they got a lot of old bad press for that, or a lot of people were talking them down, and that was fair enough. I understood it. But like I said, like, every team can have an off day, and they did. They came back because they were very, very open in that game. This half back line was pulled out very far, and there was an awful amount of space in front of James Perry. But I felt like in the game after the Tommies game, they shored it up very well. And if they can do that again, and if they can shut down some of the big men Thomases have, get some big performances out of Ja and Sean Collins and James Egan and Alan Dolan, I think it could be a lot closer than people think.
Definitely, yeah, and that's the thing you need. If you've obviously your defence are going to have their work cut out at one end, but at the same time, you can't be relying on keeping Thomas to 12 or 14 points. It's up the other end. You're going to have to put up a score as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like everyone knows that these Thomas's boys are going to get scores no matter what you do. You can only mitigate as many scores as you can, really, and it's just about the boys up top doing the business, making space for them, making sure the ball in is right in front of Ja, in front of young Collins, and then boys have space. Like, they can do serious damage. So a goal or two could be crucial as well. So if they can nip one or two,
definitely,
yeah.
And I remember, like, you know, we played G now back in 2015. It was the year before the split came to Senior A, Senior B. It was your first year up senior.
Yeah.
Same group in the championship normal, we'll say. And I remember you finished bottom of the group that year, and then we drew you again in the group in the qualifier, we'll say, for Senior A, Senior B. And it came down to the last game, and the winner between us went up. So you got the better of us that day. And really, from that year on, once you qualified for Senior A, just the club went to a different level, really, didn't it?
100%. Like, and a lot of that goes down to a couple of lads, but I think Damien Joyce deserves an awful lot of credit, like, because ever since I was coming up, and he seemed to almost like drag lads along with him, like, like lads totally bought into what he was saying, and whenever he speaks, boys tend to listen. But Damien deserves an awful lot of credit for that, and then Tony Nevin became involved, and Jerry Carney and them boys, and yeah, there was a big buy-in from that group, like, a big buy-in to the whole thing, and we had a good minor 21 team. We won B in my last year, and a lot of them lads, we held on to that group. That group stayed with us, and yeah, big buy-in, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, for a club like Cappy, like as you say, a minor or an under 1B win, it can be worth more to ye in 5 or 6 years' time than, we'll say, if Clarenbridge or Turlough win 2 or 3 under 1As in a row. For ye, to take, you could take 7 or 8 out of that team, no more than ourselves. If we were to win a minor or 1B, you take so much from that, and you probably make more of it in a lot of ways than the bigger clubs that have more talent at their disposal, would say, year in, year out.
100%. I couldn't agree more, because it builds a bit of momentum. Like, even in a club, even in like the younger lads see it, and the crowd start coming, and it generates momentum. And once you have momentum, it's like a snowball. It keeps gathering, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what I found with the club. Like, and the juvenile are doing very well, doing some serious work. And it's strength, and the club seems to be going from strength to strength, which is great to see. And yeah. It's exciting times, I suppose. That's the way I look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to Tony last week just to preview the game, and we were on about the county semi-final day in Pearse Stadium. And I was saying to him, I said, Tony, would your lads have ever actually played in Pearse Stadium? Because you've got a lot of teams there that would have plenty of experience of the stadium just by way of location where they are. Whereas for yourselves, it's kind of it's rather slow an awful lot of times. And he said, apart from a few guys that would have been in there with the county, with the club, they'd actually never have been in there. So you're back in Athenry this weekend anyhow, Paul. So I think, in fairness, you'll be happy enough with that, I'd say.
No, 100%. I was thinking of myself as well. I can't remember once playing a championship game or any type of game for the club in Pearse Stadium. So it's either the Duggan or Loughrea or Athenry. So when I heard that I was fixed for Kenny Park, I was thinking happy days, to be honest, because the lads will be more comfortable there. They know their surroundings, so yeah, I only see it as a positive anyway. That's for sure.
And it's probably somewhere, David, fair to say that we've seen the best from Cappy as well. Paul mentioned how comfortable the lads will be in there, and it probably reflects in a lot of their performances too in county finals recent years. Even Larkins this year, probably their best performance to date of the year. So definitely, it looks as though that they'll be happier in Athenry anyhow.
Yeah, the Cappy as a club, they seem to thrive in county semi-final day. I know the results mightn't show that, Paul, but some of your best performances were actually there, because you weren't like taking on Mellows is no easy feat in itself. Like, you saw they very nearly came over Thomas's last year, say, like, despite kind of maybe they just didn't produce in the second half. But what's like, I suppose it'll be a different kind of county semi-final day this year, won't it, really, with a smaller crowd? But Cappy as a club always strike me that they bring plenty of passion to the occasion. Even if there's only 100 of you in there, you'll make yourselves heard anyway, as they say.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a couple of teleporters around having a sneaky view if they can. Or like a couple of lads with high vis, like there was in Duggan Park the last day. But yeah, like they do. Like we always seem to produce fairly big performances in Kenny Park. I don't know. We play a lot of our games there. It suits us for whatever reason. I think, I don't know if Pearse Stadium is for if we're as well suited to it. But yeah, we turn up in Kenny Park, and like I said, we've come out on the wrong side against Mellows on too many occasions. But I just think the time is kind of coming for this team now. That we need to kind of get over the semi-final hurdle now and just get into the final. Like, it's one of those things that you can get over that semi-final kind of hoodoo. That, do you know what I mean? You don't know after that. A final is a final, and anything can happen in a final.
Yeah.
But please God, like, they'll be able to.
You touched on just the 2018 a second, like, and I know the free or whatever at the end, but Jesus, I just remember your own performance that day. Like, it's you could definitely walk off the field with your head very high for your contribution to the cause on the day. Like, and even at that, it takes serious nerve to step over a free like that towards the end, and put yourself in the chopping block. Let's say, like, but like, just I don't know, like, what was going through your thoughts maybe on that day, or like, you know what I mean? You're inspired for him throughout anyway, or do you have much memories of that occasion or that day? It was probably your last time John in the Cappy jersey. Would I be right in saying that as well? That'd be
yeah. That's it. It was the last time I put on the jersey. All right, yeah. I do remember. I remember the game was we were going fairly all right. I think it was close enough at half time, and with maybe 5 minutes to go, we go 1 point or 2 points up. I think maybe went 1 point up. We had a great chance to go 2 points up maybe, and really it was there for us. Like, and it was just that was the one that really stung now, to be honest, because I knew it was there for the winning. Like, but look, I mean, fair play to the Mellows. They're a quality outfit, and Ty Herring got the ball around midfield, and whenever he gets it, he doesn't need two chances to put it over.
No, that's for sure.
But the free, like, to be honest, I wasn't sure if I wanted to hit it or not. I think someone said, I'm not sure if it was Michael Broderick or someone, Claffey hit that, so I looked around and said, right, sure, I'll give it a crack. So, but it was one of those things. It was close, but look, these things happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Just on Asia a second, and just playing a bit of GAA out there. Like, what's the overall standard like out there? Are you playing a bit of hurling or football, or what are you involved with?
It's mostly football, to be honest. Really, where I am, we try and keep the hurling going. There's a couple of lads around, a couple of lads from Wexford and here and there. So we try and we bring the hurls to football train, and we'll have a puck round before and that kind of stuff. But generally it's mostly football. But in saying that, we do have a tournament. So we had the Southeast Asia Games once a year, and we had the All Asia Games once a year. But they were cancelled this year now because of the corona and everything. But yeah, trying to get the hurling going, trying our best.
There was just on Twitter, I don't know, you retweeted it there, and I'm just curious myself. You had a picture of yourself with a cup in the middle. Can you? And the caption was something like, "Was it All Asian Hurling MVP?" Can you explain that one to us?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That was one of the lads. Stephen put up that. That was this time last year. That was the Southeast Asia Games in Bangkok. We played 4 or 5 games, seven aside. Cruel heat. The heat was unbelievable. But yeah, we ended up winning that. So we got the trophy there somewhere, and they hand out like a man of the or an MVP at the end of the tournament or something. So
very good, very good. Yeah. So the touch is all right. So still for another while, if you're to be thrust back into the number 6 next year, you're saying you'd be all right to do that if they needed you.
The fitness now, I think, wouldn't be hectic. And
sure.
But look, we'll see.
That's it. Perfect. Sure. Look, with that, we might as well move on to preview the game that we were kind of chatting about there at the weekend. I suppose cancelled last weekend. It emerged that a Thomas's player had contracted COVID, and I suppose the news, kind of the players, from my understanding, is they were all told that they were casual contacts, and they've been tested during the week, and that they all came back and they're pretty much okay. I suppose a slight disruption maybe, really, but nothing major either for the two teams. And I suppose if nothing else, it gives maybe both teams a chance to get another week of preparation in ahead and fine tune things maybe.
Yeah, well, like, I think it's one of those, but it's obviously the boys were not expecting it. It obviously came as a shock, I suppose. But like, yeah, you have to get on with it, I suppose. Get back to training and get back to the ball, do a few bits. But yeah, get on with it. Really, it's the same for both teams.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It is what it is. Get on with it.
Sure. Yeah, it's just strange in a way. Like, this is since your promotion from intermediate, like, you've actually, despite meeting the knockout stages, I don't think you've ever played Thomas's yet in championship hurling. It's a weird one, isn't it? Really, you know what I mean? Just, I suppose, look at the draw. It's probably two teams that probably know each other well, but actually don't know each other actually on the field either. Yeah,
exactly. And I was thinking we were happy enough to avoid them, I think, for a long time. But look, yeah, like I was saying earlier, if you want to win a county championship, you have to beat the best teams. So it's a thing of you have to beat them. But like, yeah, it's gonna be a massive one this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Patrick, I suppose the move to Kinney Park. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it'll change much of the dynamic, or Paul seems to be of the opinion there, like as a player, that Kenny Park might actually suit Cappataggle in a way. Like they're well used to it. They know the ground inside out, as we'll say at this stage.
Yeah, well, definitely the familiarity aspect of it is going to be a help. Like, there's no, who's to say that they wouldn't have gone into Pierce Stadium and it wouldn't have suited them down to a T as well, you know. But it's just the fact that they haven't been there before, that you'd have that slight bit of concern, like, you know. Whereas with Thomas's, it doesn't really matter to them. Like, it's not as if Thomas are going to Pierce Stadium and like, oh god, we've to go to Athenry now. So they're delighted as well. But it's just the fact that Cappy have that familiarity with Athenry, you know, that there will be that. They'll be a bit more comfortable anyhow. And then once they hit the field and between the four lines, you know, it's both teams are going to be ultra comfortable in what they're doing. And then it comes down to what happens between that first whistle and that final whistle. You know, it all happens in such a short period of time. Whoever takes to it best, and probably, you know, in Cappy's case, if they put their best foot forward, they'll certainly be right there at the end. But it's kind of a lot of this depends on Cappataggle, whether that they can sharpen up, I suppose, in defence, because they had in fairness, the Haskell posed a lot of problems for them in the first half. The last day, even when like Joycey was named at 12, but he dropped back, so they had plenty of bodies back there, but still around the middle third, the Haskell were well on top of them the last day in the first half. But then the second half, Cappataggle totally took over in that sector. So it's just a case of trying to get on top there earlier this time, because if Thomases have that same level of dominance there in the first half the next day, it won't be a case of Cappy reeling in a 3 or 4 point halftime deficit. The game could be done, like, you know. That's just how good Thomases are.
Yeah, Paul, Cappy probably, they have the raw materials, would say, to hurt Thomas's in a way. They've bagged loads of speed in the inside line, and they've plenty of quality, say, you know what I mean, between the two Mannions and Collins that you mentioned already. They can really hurt Thomas's, but I suppose goals will be key for Cappy. If they're probably to get over the line, it's likely they might need a few goals. They'll need to bag a few goals.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more, to be honest. Goals could be key, and if you get a goal early, or if you get a goal just before half time, or look, you get a rub of the green. Like, when it comes to semi-final time, people underestimate how much a bit of luck can help you as well. So if you can get a sneaky goal, you never know. Like, but we've a very strong half forward line. I mean, James Egan he's a great target for the puck out. So if we can get ball on top of him, get boys in around it, and then get like I said, get fast ball into the boys inside. Yeah, they're dangerous. They're dangerous. Yeah, for sure.
It's just on the system you play. Like, I think we're all very familiar with it now. Like, it's probably creating space inside and being tight at the back, we'll say, like most teams. But is it an enjoyable kind of system to play in the cap? It looks enjoyable from outside the wire anyway, whatever it's like inside.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it anyway, to be honest. I enjoy sitting back, kind of. Whenever I played six, I like sitting back and kind of being in between the centre forward and the full forward, and trying to pick up loose ball. But yeah, there seem to be, like, they're coping well back there. I mean, Paddy Egan had a stormer. I'm not sure, Duggan Park one of the days. Declan Cronin is flying. Like, he's one of the best man markers in the Galway scene anyway. He's well able to tie a good man down, and he's a great hurler as well. And then you have, James Garvey back there, which it'll be a good battle between him and Dara Birkin there. But yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Thomas's Patrick, though, as we've mentioned it so many times before, though, like, Cappy have a good strong defence, but Thomas just have so many attacking threats. Like, they're nameless, really. Like, from 8 to 15, every single one of them are capable. You wouldn't be surprised if they came away with 3-4 points a game, no matter who it's beside. They always seem to be capable of taking on a few scores here or there.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, as Paul mentioned there, kind of James Garvey and Dara Burke is kind of the one matchup that you're gonna have nailed down your head straight away. Like, that's definitely going to happen. Like, and I tell you, there'll be a lot of work going on, let's say, before a high ball actually reaches them. You know, there'll be a fair bit of jostling going on there, and it'll actually be a brilliant duel, that, you know, because Dara Burke is one of those forwards that you'd love to have in your team, in that, like, the amount of turnovers he won the last day. You know, Thomas, we know how many scorers they have, and Darragh Burke's well capable of scoring as well. But what he actually brings to it complements those scorers so much in that he works so hard to win over ball for them, and because when the ball is in there, to keep it in there, and that in turn helps your backs back the other and gives them a bit of time, you know. But like Declan Cronin would say, definitely without question one of the best man markers, if not the best man marker in the Galway club scene for the last 3 or 4 years. But then you start thinking about it, like who's he actually going to pick up? Do you know, is he going to stay in the full back line on Oisin Flannery? Is he going to come out in the wing on Éanna Burke? You've got Conor Cooney. Is he going to go from him centre back? Probably not. I'd say more likely to pick up either Éanna or Oisin Flannery. But there's just, he can only pick up one of them. There's 3 or 4 more that have to be picked up as well. So it's a day where the rest of the lads, there's not everyone really has to front up. You know, your Paddy Egan's, your Michael Broderick's, they all have to have one of their best games and try tie down a Thomas's attacker. Really, that's the reality, Paul, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You've said it all there, Patrick. Like you're going to need a massive shift from the 6 backs. Like it's just going to be, there'll be times where it's going to be backs against the wall. You know, you're going to be 1 against 1, and you're going to need to either win the ball or hold them up. Like, and if you can't, you know, the Thomas's boys, they won't be messing around. It could be over the bar straight away. Like,
yeah.
But like Darragh Dolan is hurling very well this year. There's another I haven't mentioned him, but he's flying. But yeah, it's going to be tricky, but you're going to need a massive shift from the 6 backs. 100%.
Yeah. Just another, Paul, important battleground will be midfield as well. Like, because Thomas's are fierce strong in midfield. They've Davy Burke, like we know all what he can bring, in James Regan. So the likes, which year no slouches either there. With like say you've Dan Nevin this year and Ian Garvey, who were two serious club hurlers in their own right.
Yeah, no, 100%. A lot of people don't really recognise them, or talk about them much. They kind of talk about the forwards and the backs a bit, but like Dan Evan was one of our best hurlers for a long time. Unbelievable minor hurler, goal 121. Had a couple of injuries like not so long ago there, but if you can get Dan Evan on sound, you can throw sidelines over, freeze. You know, he's a right good club hurler, and I think his aspirations to go on further than that, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't go further onto the county scene. And then Éanna Garvey he's one of the hardest working midfielders in Galway. Like he'll stay running for you all day. His hooks, blocks, and tackle count is always off the charts in after the game when we do our analysis. He's always number 1 or number 2. So they've got a good dynamic there. And if they can hold their own, against obviously Thomas's, Regan and Burke, like it won't be easy. But if they can hold their own, and maybe pick off 1 or 2 scores, they'll be doing very well.
With that, we might just get a prediction from you both, so lads. We'll start, Patrick.
Well, look, as I've said, like it's a lot depends on Cappy, what they bring to it. If Cappy bring their best performance to it, there won't be a lot in it at the end. But in saying that, I just like team and the way they're hurling this year as well. You know, I actually think they're actually playing better now than they have done in a lot of previous county championship campaigns. You know, so look for that reason, I think Thomas's will win it, but I definitely expect Cappy's best performance of the year, and there's be maybe only 3 or 4 in it for a finish.
Paul, just your thoughts then.
Yeah, like I think you probably know which way I'm going to go now.
But fair enough.
If we can hang in there till half time, if we can just stay with them and make sure they don't get a run on us, get a goal or 2 after half time, I think we might make it. Cappy by 2 or 3.
Perfect. And we've no danger of seeing you strip off or anything, or in the stand or anything late or anything like that. You've no late flight hooks, should I say?
No.
No.
The bear scandal has me warned off that now, I think.
We won't say any more than that anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Well, just to myself, I think Thomas is probably just going that bit better this year, and Cappy are just maybe slightly below where they were the last couple of years, and for that reason alone, I just think Thomas probably will get over the line. Sorry about that now, Paul, but that's just the way it was. Yeah. You can be sure to let us know if we get it wrong. You can be sure to give us plenty of it. But yeah, look, that's everything from that anyway, Paul. Paul, thanks a million for joining us, and we might see you very soon again back in the Athenry or Banlaslow or one of these places.
Please God. Thanks very much for having me, lad. I enjoyed that.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah,
No
no
bother.
worries, lad.
Right, so we'll plough on then. I suppose we'll continue with the preview part really more than anything else. And before we start reviewing the games of last weekend, there's one other game on this weekend, the relegation playoff between Kinvara and Kinladima. I suppose plenty of people are aware now that Kinvara have lodged an official objection with Galway GA over the over an alleged incident of whether a player quarantined or didn't quarantine shortly before their fixture with Beha. Beha obviously came out on top of that game. They run out 6-point winners, and they in turn leapfrogged Kinladima on scores forward by a single point. So that meant that kind of leaves us with Kinladima and Kinvara in a relegation final. I understand just in terms of the investigation, it's ongoing, and both clubs have been asked by Galway GA for clarification and comment by the CCC. Both were given a deadline of early this week. And I think there's going to be a meeting tonight, or it's expected to be a meeting tonight to review both clubs' correspondence, and the investigation will move on then from that point. Nonetheless, it's understood that no decision will be made before the relegation final at the weekend. I suppose just on that, I suppose there's from what I've been hearing back, just from chatting to a few people, there's probably a small bit of anger kind of emerging over the last week between some parties in terms of the investigation and that. And I suppose it's a difficult enough situation, but it's a saga that's probably going to rumble on for another while further. I know it's a difficult position for you to be in, Patrick, as a player, but I don't know, whatever, if you want to make a comment on it, or whatever you can.
Yeah, look, I know people were waiting and expecting for comment from me last week. Look, from where I stand, I was one of the players who went out and played the game last week, and that's where I stand now, is that I was a player going out in that field. All I was thinking about was trying to win a game for my club and keep us up senior, and that's first and foremost what we achieved that goal. So for me, whatever happens from here on, it's out of the players' control. It's nothing to do with me. To be honest, I'm not really keeping up to date with what's going on in it, because I can't change anything about whatever is going to happen. But just out of loyalty and respect for my own club, I'm just gonna sit back and let them take care of it, let the county board take care of it, and whatever way it comes out, as a player, I did my job as well as the rest of us in Athenry last week, so that's all we can kind of control. And we got our end of the bargain, which was and kept the club up. So that was the main priority for us anyhow.
Yeah, absolutely, and a fine cornerback as well. I think it was I was perched on the wall there watching, and so you redeployed, was it, from midfield back to cornerback?
Yeah. I've gone back out of necessity in a couple of games. Thrown into it from the start. The last haven't been much happier and much more comfortable in midfield most of the year. But the issue of playing well in cornerback is that I'm probably stuck there for the rest of my life now. So a couple of doors thing ever did. But who knows? A few roastings next year now might change that. So
I suppose just moving on to the game at the weekend, then you would probably be in a position better than most, because you've actually faced the two teams in the last couple of weeks, we'll say, or the last few weeks. What are kind of your thoughts on the upcoming relegation final between Kinladima, Leitrim and Kinvara?
Yeah, it's one of these ones where, to be honest, Kinvara's win over them a couple of weeks ago it's null and void in many ways. It doesn't make any blind bit of odds whatsoever when it comes to now. It's a one-off game, and that probably comes down to Riley's fitness. I know he went off that day, so I don't know, was it a shoulder complaint, or I think, as far as I know. So a lot depends on him, no more than Conor Williams for Kinvara. He's the talisman, and like reality is, without him against us, they probably wouldn't have beaten us, because he's that good. Like he's a class act. Having played the two of them, Killeen were very impressive against us, and having chatted to people that would have seen Killeen that day and seen them other days, they'd say that they were a different team the day against us. Now, I don't know, maybe that says more about us than does other teams, I don't know, but to be fair, we didn't play particularly poorly on the day. You know, what I would say is that we were more clinical against Kinvara, and we capitalised more on the opportunities we created. You know, we scored 3 goals against Kinvara. We haven't scored 3 goals in the last 2 years combined nearly. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those days where when a chance presented itself, we took it. And even as Kennedy Malistrom, we got 1 goal, and we would have felt there was more goals there in us, and so against their defence, we could have created more opportunities, but didn't. You know, so, and that's one thing Canberra do have is the obvious goal threat with Whelan, you know, and even like, he went in full forward for the second half against us, but in the first half they won a penalty, obviously, so that's a goal threat. You know, so
yeah,
they have that in them, you know, and there is goals. To be fair, there's probably goals in both sets of forwards, and both sets of backs have been conceding goals. So a lot probably comes down to that aspect of it, and who can get on top there. You know, like with Kinvara, how they're going to line out this weekend is going to be interesting, because we had Joe Gantry was full forward for us, so the obvious pick for them was Shane Cabinet to Markham. You know, they would have been 121 for Galway together. They'd be the same.
yeah.
Would have matched for plenty of times down the years. So it was the obvious thing to do. Do I think Kavanagh will start there again the next day? I don't want to. I wouldn't expect he will. So whether that means Alan Leach goes back and or Shane Byrne goes over in it, I'm not sure. But I'm sure they'll have someone in detail from Malai as well if he is there. Maybe James Roger or something, or even Shane Burns as well. Maybe, you know. And then the other one, having chatted to lads, like they would have said that Whelan wasn't that influential against Kilnadima, whereas the day against us he was just unremarkable against us. To be fair, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
So if he gets into that sort of form again against Kilnadima, he could do an awful lot of damage, you know. So there's a lot of variables in it, you know. Back in Loughrea, I think Kinvara will be happier if it's in Loughrea of the two, you know. And so they do have the confidence to take from having beaten them already, which it is worth the bait in fairness, you know. So it's tough to call for sure, yeah, definitely.
Just one interesting aspect that I kind of noted, like, and would be the introduction of Jerry Mahan. I thought he caused a bit of bother when he came on. He just kind of was a nice foil for Whelan, shall we say? Like, he kind of took a bit of the heat away from Whelan, because he's capable of winning a ball, and I think he sniped a point as well, didn't he? Like, when he was on. So, you know, if you could get maybe 30 minutes out of him, maybe even if you mightn't be able to start him, it'd be a big addition there for Kinvara as well.
Definitely, yeah, because like, you know, they played. Tom Dublin spent a lot of time in full forward, but he wasn't having the same joy aerially as definitely as German did in the last 2 minutes, you know. Like Whelan was in the edge of the square in the second half, as you say, but he was kind of a lone man up there in a lot of ways. Like, my man was straight out to the side, just to kind of get out of the way basically, and try and isolate him one-on-one as best they could. But no, when Mahan went in, it did work nicely for them later on, that he caught a couple of balls, and he scored a point. You're right in saying, you know, they scored 113, he scored a point, Calvin scored a point from a free, and Whelan scored the rest of it, like, you know. So
yeah,
but that they do need more from some of the other fellas, like, you know, like the Tom O'Donnell's and the Conor Burks, these sort of guys. They need to, and the two midfielders, James Zahara and I'd can score as well. So they need all those fellas to be popping up and helping out Whelan in the scoring stakes, like, you know. And that's not to say they didn't do plenty from open play, because they did, but they need to have more of a scoring threat. And they tell you that themselves, like, you know, you can't be relying on Whelan to score 95 or 6% of your points every day you go out, like, you know.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose relegation finals in particular, they're really always tight, tense battles, but just the result is the only thing that matters, really. It's likely to be a tight affair. Could you call it, or do you, just based on your viewing of the two teams, who would you fancy?
Yeah, I think yeah. As I say, a lot depends on Malai's fitness. If he is fit, I think, and if they have someone that can put half a shackle on Whelan, I think they probably will have enough to survive. Because what I saw from them, the day they played us, like there's no way they were a relegation team based on their performance that day against us. But they haven't been consistently performing like that. They wouldn't have been there. They've said if they were performing like that, So it depends what you get from them first of all, and if you get what they're capable of, and they probably will win it. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably go along with that as well. If Malai is such a crucial player for them, though, like if he happens to not make it, I think that could be the swinger back towards Kinvara. But I don't think there'll be much in it now. I think it'll be a score. It'll be a score or two, and I don't know. Maybe just the last 2 years, there's been a bit more experience at senior as well. You kind of just have to fancy Kilnadine and Leitrim, just they've been playing better teams over the last couple of years maybe than Kinvara have. Although we saw last year in the final, Kinvara, they showed plenty of fight too in the intermediate final, and they fought right to the death, and you could be guaranteed they do the exact same the next day. But I'd be like yourself. I'm going to go with Kilnadine and Leitrim as well. So I suppose then we'll move on to the action of last weekend. We're going a bit backwards this time. We're reversing things, but anyway, it's just we had Paul on, and there was a 6-hour difference in Vietnam, so it was probably better to get it worked out this way. He was about 10:30 when we were interviewing him, and it's only 4 o'clock our time. So, but we're both in Pearse Stadium on Sunday. Of course, it was only the second game of what was supposed to be a double header. Turlough 2-17, Loughrea 1-17 in the senior semi-final. A strange game, I thought. Never really caught fire. Maybe bits and pieces. It was good. Like it wasn't like there was a lack of quality now or anything like that. I wouldn't suggest that. But I suppose Loughrea probably had only read one spell where they were massively on top, and that was leading up to half time, where they hit 6 points unanswered to turn a 3-point deficit into 3-point advantage. But I suppose the hammer blow would have been right before half time with that 1-1 that Turlough hit, which Barry Kenlon, who was absolutely excellent. He tormented the Loughrea defenders all day, and I think he finished with 1-3. And then Dahi sauntered up the field, collecting a delightful ball in from Sean Loftus, sticking his hand up, controlling it, falling over, puts it right into the hand of Gary Burke on the run in the back of the net, and Turlough are back in the lead. And two very different team talks from that point on then, and Turloughmore like that, if something that maybe perhaps sapped a bit of Loughrea's confidence a small bit, that score. And I suppose from that point on, Turloughmore looked fully in control in the second half, Patrick, didn't they, really?
Yeah, it's fair to say, like, Loughrea deserved to be in front at half time, and yet they weren't. That says a lot about, I suppose, Turlough's development and the mentality that's within the squad at the minute, that they were able to swing that and stop that momentum. It would have been easy in the last couple of minutes to just ride it out to half time and go in your 2 or 3 points down, then start fresh in the second half. But no, they went upfield, they got the point with Callan, and then they stuck for the killer blow before half time, and that just changed the game totally. Loughrea were in a position where they're after firing 6 in a row, and their forwards had looked to be getting to the kind of level they were at against Mellows, and then just in the flash of an eye, all their work was undone, and they were going in trailing again. Now, still, you're going out in the second half, and you're a point down. It's not like you're in a bad position, but they didn't start the second half the same way they played for the kind of the second quarter, we'll say. And Turlough, on the other hand, continued on from where they left off at the end of the half and rattled over the first 4 of the second half. And that coupled with the goal for half time, that was the win of the game, really, because there was always there was between 3 and 6 between them the whole time in the second half, which it takes a goal to overhaul that if you're not able to get any close for points, and the goal never really threatened until it came nearly the last puck of the game,
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose just looking at the scores here, I thought Loughrea would have been very happy with what they had, like say the likes of Sean Lynn and Sean Loftus and Conor Walsh. Between those three, they only scored 2 points in play. 2 points in play, like, so. Jesus, if you said that to John Dooley and Shane Cusick and Jeff Bielinski and the rest of the boys, they would have been absolutely delighted with that. But such as Turlough this year, that certain different lads are kind of nearly stepping up every day, and this time it was the time of Barry Kenlon to really cut loose, and he really went to town on them, didn't he?
Yeah, well, the reality is like Ballycannon scored 1-3, but it should have been 3-1. Like that's you know there was two just over the way. Probably should have been goals. Definitely one of them should have been a goal. And even the first one, he could have either gone low himself or he could have played a return pass to Conor Walsh, and he might have been in a better position to go for a goal. But it was in that first half, it was quite defensive a lot of the time, especially the first quarter. Loughrea sat back an awful lot, and they left McManus up front totally isolated. And then they were kind of putting them under enough pressure that they were just launching ball from their own half back line to often 2 free Turloughmen at times, but still Turlough created goal chances in that time. So when Turlough were doing that, it made Loughrea's tactics redundant, and they changed, they pushed up in the second quarter, and that's where their improvement did come, But I think Turlough's game allows them to still excel in those sort of conditions, in that their close control, their running lines, and their interplay. It's very, very good. In their hand passing game, I mentioned it against Arsenal, and it's really, really good. There was times, especially in the second half, you could see it. The last time that someone would win a ball and he'd have a man coming towards him off his shoulder at pace. And it's often like in rugby, you see when the Ireland lads are playing, so oftentimes they're throwing ball across the line, they're catching it, and they're static. Then they start their run. Whereas if they play a flat ball and there's a man coming taking that ball on pace, you break the game lines straight away. You have to look at rugby and you're like, why do guys do that more often? Because doing it once or twice can change a play totally, and that's something Turlough are very good at. And that he get a few right good examples of it in the second half. And those runs from midfield, if Jamie Holland made one in the first half, which they got a penalty from, Dahi made the one they got the goal from. There was a couple more in the second half where they didn't actually pick out the man, but they ran forward into space and they weren't tracked. And had they been picked out a bit quicker, there was goals there as well. So it's just all around it gave off the impression of a team really, really well drilled, that really know what they're doing and are capable of implementing it on the big day, as they've now proven, because a lot of these signs were there last year too, but when it came to the semi-final day against Hamilton, they didn't show up until the last 15 minutes, and then they started hurling really, whereas the last day it was much different. They looked like a kind of team that were seasoned at that level, but then you see the reaction at full time, you're like, Jesus, these lads have never been in a county final. The club haven't been there for 30 years, and it didn't feel like that when they were playing the game, whereas it probably should have. But just kind of, I suppose that's kind of the perception you have of Turlough, in that they've won so much over the last decade or so, with all been underage. Now is where it's finally starting to come to fruition for them at senior,
Yeah, just on the reaction of full time, I thought it was very muted for a team that hadn't reached a county final in 30 years. I thought, Jesus, this is very unusual, because you'd see teams that win a quarter final and they'd be absolutely ecstatic. But I think if anything, it's almost a good sign, because I think the eyes are on the prize. It's not about reaching a county final this year for them. It's about actually winning the county final, and that's the only thing that will satisfy that group this year, because they know now that they're not exactly a young team anymore. They're not old either, no question, but they're mature now to the level it's time for them now to start, showing their promise, shall we say? I thought it was an unusual. I don't know. Even the reaction was unusual, maybe slightly, but I thought the whole atmosphere and everything was strange. It probably would have been maybe a bit more. I don't know. Would have been a bit better in Athenry, or what? Would you have any thoughts on that? I thought Pierce Stadium was probably too expensive for a crowd of 200, and it's a county semi-final. We know what to expect. It's normally the biggest day in the Galway calendar, and instead it was kind of it was a bit muted. Now we were behind glass as well, so maybe it was a bit louder out there. But I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that at all yourself?
Yeah, but in fairness, I think the thing is, when they were preparing for this semi-final, they were doing no crowd, which. In fairness, probably putting it into Pierce Stadium from a health and safety perspective was the right thing to do. In that
for sure,
you couldn't have the same issue with cherry pickers and lads going up on walls and whatnot, because it's blocked off Pierce Stadium. You just can't do it. So I think if they had known in advance that there was 200 permitted in, it would have been Athenry all day long. Do you know? There was no question about it. 200 in Pure Stadium or 200 in Athenry. One winner there, like, you know, it'll be that way this weekend with Thomas and Cappy. Like, it'll feel like a decent sort of atmosphere in there the next day now. And same for the county final, which presumably will be hopefully in Athenry as well. You know, but yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, it didn't help where we are behind the glass, because
No.
the best of times it does suck the atmosphere out of it. But you know,
Yeah.
they still, while there was 100 Turlough people in there, they still didn't have that same crowd reaction at full time that you might get a lift off and kind of lose your head for 10 or 15 seconds. You know, it was the two lads kind of fell to their knees a small bit, alright, as if they kind of let their emotion out that way. You know. No, there was no jumping or dancing or singing around, because yeah, as you say, at this stage, especially with the lads they've over them as well, like, you know, they know what it takes to get to a final, but then they also know that when you lose one, it's not easy to get back there again the next year.
No.
In the back of their heads too, because such is the standard, the kind of, I suppose, among the top 7 or 8 in Galway especially, that, you know, we've seen Mellows go out the quarter final. There's nothing to say Mellows couldn't be in a county final again next year. Like, you know what I mean? It's just that it is that sort of that final line really between the top 5 or 6 on any given day. You know.
Yeah. Just a word on Loughrea then, I suppose. It would be, you know, it's a fine achievement for them. They probably might have been expected by most quarters to reach the last 4, but here they are. They've done it now, and like, it's such a young team as well. This whole journey this year, in my eyes, will bring them on so much. You know what I mean? Like, they managed to get over. You know, they managed to get over Mellows without Jamie Ryan, who was absolutely outstanding the last day again. Like, you know what I mean? He's such a threat there. Like, he's a fantastic player. Neil Carey as well seemed to regain a bit of form, and you've Emmett Mahoney back in around the fringes again, or not around the fringes, back in action again, should I say? It's a strong looking Loughrea team when we look into the future now. Say 12 months down the line again. Now next year, now it'll probably be push on for a county final place and maybe go even further again.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think they'll. You know, chatting to Shane Hughes during the week before the game, the attitude was that, you know, now that we're here, we want to win it. Like, you know, and there's only so long you can build. There's a time comes where that transition has to happen, that you go to the next level, and they felt like this was the year for them to take that next step. And their eyes winning the county title, but it didn't work out for them. And it was always going to be difficult for them to reach that same level of performance again, you know. And they didn't reach the same level of performance. There's no point saying they did, because they just didn't, like, you know. But had that 1-1 not hit them before half time, it would have been a very different game in the second half. But that did definitely knock the stuffing out of them. And then when you concede the first 4 points in the second half, you've what, an 8-point swing there in no time at all. And that did definitely took a bit out of them, and they didn't have the same joy. They didn't, like, Jamie Ryan scored all 4 of his points in the first half. Those kind of lads. Joe Mooney was good throughout, in fairness. But they didn't get the same joy. They didn't get the same sort of space for those lads to work on. And even when they did, like, Jamie Ryan got a ball out in the line, and we saw he was like, cynically dragged down, you know. But it was absolutely. You ask anyone around the ground, you ask the Loughrea lads, they speak like it was the right thing to do. They say yes,
absolutely.
Was, like, you know,
yeah,
because he was gone. So, like, that's that bit of cuteness you need to have at this stage as well, which I suppose Turlough showed it. But yeah, no, like Loughrea are similar. Maybe the age profile is slightly younger than Turlough's, but it wouldn't be a lot of those younger lads on the Loughrea team would be the same age as the Turlough lads of that era. You know, wouldn't play to each other underage an awful lot. So they're maturing now as well, and you know, you would expect them to kick on again next year. I don't see anyone that they're going to lose from that team, you know.
No.
A few of the older lads, like Neil Carey's one of the older lads, Emmett Mahoney, Paul Hogan. You look at those lads, how they've been performing this year. There's no fear of them going anywhere, you know. Just a few of them have had their best years in some time. I've been awful impressed with Neil Carey the last 2 days. You know, really impressed. I thought he was excellent for them, you know. So yeah, no, it's just, it looks for the future is looking very promising for that Loughrea group for sure, and I'd expect them to again reach this stage next year and probably hopefully take a step on from it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I suppose just on Turlough now of an extra week of preparation, shall we say? It's from the other two semi-finalists. It's probably going to stand to them if nothing else, really, wouldn't it? Like, it'll have to. Should I say that there's no way? You'd imagine it would have to. An extra. What? It's 6 days between the Cappataggle and Thomas's clash and the county final. It's going to be very hard to go for both those semi-finalists left to really, be 100%. And, there's always the chance of picking up injuries between the semi-final and, over the course of the semi-final, should I say.
Yeah, definitely, because, even in fairness, when you consider Claffey and Thomas at the minute, it's probably good for them in that they had a couple of knocks going into the semi-final that have the Donald Mannions, the James Egan's, the David Sherrys, that have the bit of time to get right, and I expect they'll all play on Sunday. But then when you come out of it, depending on how the game is, and you'd expect it's going to be a bruise and rough sort of a game, because that's the kind of the physicality and intensity both will bring to the game. 6 days to recover for Turlough it's definitely advantage Turlough. Yeah, put it that way. But such is the way things are this year. It's the right thing to do. It's whoever comes out on Sunday might feel slightly aggrieved, but it's a case of trying to get this thing over and done with as quickly as we can. And for the year that's in it, you put up with it, and yeah, you'd definitely, if you're in Turlough shoes, you're happy with your extra week. They can, suppose, probably what are we now, Wednesday evening, they probably will have a decent enough session tonight or tomorrow maybe, and then another one Saturday or Sunday, and then you're filtering off for the week then to get everything, all the bodies and everything bang on for the week after. But they all seem to come out of the last day fairly all right, which is a boost. And they have the backup there that even though the game, and they're still making their 4 or 5 changes, taking lads off, bringing on fresh lads that are adding to the whole thing, and that's worth its weight in gold when you get to this time of year. The intensity of these games.
Absolutely. I suppose with that, then we'll move on to the intermediate, where I suppose Turlough didn't have as much joy as they did in the senior. I suppose just Kilkenarren again, just the standout team with the competition so far at intermediate level, running out 3-15 to 11-point winners. So many of us expected to be a lot closer, if nothing else. Teams met last year and there wasn't a whole pile in it, but Kilkenarren at this point really looking unstoppable force, despite even what they hit a catalogue of, was it 9 or 10 wides in the first half alone, and poor enough wides as well. But they managed to come out poor enough wides with the wind as well. But they managed to come out in the second half and they turned on their style and really showed the quality that they have. The likes of Sean Connaughton there, especially their 2 young minors, will we say in particular, Sean Connaughton and Ian McGlynn. I thought they're absolutely fantastic, and it's not surprising that the Kilkenarren minor A team is in the semi-final as well. With those two leading the way. But I suppose it's not only were they good in attack, but they were good in defence as well. Like, to keep that Turlough, like a lot of people fancy that Turlough attack. Like, it's a serious attack on paper, but to keep them to 11 points and only 7 from play, it showed real quality performances of Kilkenarren all over the field, and they'll take Baton in the final, that's for sure.
They will. In fairness, I would say the standard of the game this year was a lot better than when they played in last year's semi-final. It was a poor enough game that day. I thought Turlough hurled very well for a lot of it, but just when Kilkenarren got into top gear, they were just different level. Like, there's no that was without no shame, which they've added so much to their team. Like, if they came back with the same team again this year, they'd probably be at the same stage they're at now. But they're just such a better team with the injection of those couple of young lads. You mentioned Jack Walshwell off the bench, and he's a great option to bring in. And then the couple of guys back because of COVID, because of lockdown, Brian Hickey and Conor Dillon, that they didn't. They're all attackers. Those 5 we've all mentioned, they're all attackers. And we mentioned it before. You bring in 5 attackers of that quality, it allows you to shore up your defence, which they've duly done by putting Conor Caulfield back the wing back in the half back line. No, he would have been midfield or wing forward for them last year, and that's another string to your bow, I suppose, in many ways. And And they had Martin Ryan back the last day as well, back in cornerback, because without David Gannon was suspended. So he's another fella they're going to have back for the final now as well. So, and saying that he has to go get his place back now, because there's none of those six backs going to drop out very handy, that's for sure.
No.
Which if you're Ollie Burkin and his backroom team going to a final, you're rubbing your hands, with these lads hungry to get a spot, because like Sean Connaughton hadn't his place in the team, hadn't nailed down, only for Shane Caulfield was injured here. So you'd have to think that Sean Connaughton surely is going to hold on to his place now, but who's going to drop out for there's no holding back and training there for the next week or two. And I suppose we don't, important to know with the final, we don't know when it's going to be played yet, because it depends on the Michael footballers this weekend. If they win, the footballers win on Sunday, the final gets pushed back another week. And if they lose, the final is going to be Sunday week. I'm right to say that, aren't I?
Yeah, that's the way it's going to work out. Yeah, it's all dependent on the footballers' results. So, which is like, there's not a whole lot of crossover between the Mike Cullen players anyway. But I suppose there's just one or two there that they want to keep an eye on. I suppose just kind of just like there's only like Kilken Iron Love, like just even on that as well. I know Sean Connaughton scored 211. And a lot of players he was probably man of the match, but Ian McGlynn, like, what a performance in centre field! Like, he took hammer blows. He like, I've seen him. He's a couple of times now, and even when he gets a blow, like, he might be such a young fella and he might be still developing, but Jesus, he's able to take them for a lad his age, and his first year hurling intermediate, we'll say, or adult level, and he gets some rough punishment, in fairness to him, but he nearly always dusts himself up, or dusts himself down, should I say, and carries on. Like, he's a serious prospect now. Like, you wouldn't be anyway surprised at all if you were to see the likes of him wearing the maroon and white of Galway, like, at senior level in years to come.
Oh, definitely. He's a hardy bit of stuff in fairness to him, but what's the biggest asset he has is his hurling brain. He's got a brilliant understanding and reading of the game, because midfield is one of those positions where it doesn't always go for you, whereas, but the amount of ground he covered the last, he popped up all over the place, getting on ball in attack, but I suppose more often than not in defence, and getting back, putting in hooks and blocks, and then back up midfield. He was always an option on the ball, and he's not one of these lads who gets on ball and thinks in his head, geez, I have to get this into my inside line straight away. He always looks for the better option. If he sees a bit of pressure coming on himself, he'll always look for the little pass off. And in fairness, more often than not, when he's on the ball, he's not going to lose it. He's going to either play a clever ball forward or lay it off to somebody else who's in a better position to land it into the boys. And you've got, I suppose, as well as that, they're blessed with an attack that can win it any way it comes. David Mangan he's having his best year probably ever for Kilkenny too, with the edge of the square. He's a great target man under a high ball. Was unlucky, he scored 1-1, could have scored 1-3 or 4 as easily. Had a few misses that he'd expect to have put over on any other given day. And the Brian Hickeys and Sean Connaughton's playing off them. They're stylish hurlers as we've all seen. So they've got a fairly formidable attack and formidable team all over there now, to be fair. Like, another lad that really came into the game second after last, I thought, was Sean Burke in midfield alongside McGlynn. I thought he had a great game, and Colin Curley as well was very good in the wing. Carried an awful lot of ball, and again, clever on the ball. A lot of them are really clever hurlers, which only bodes well for them going forward. Anyhow, that's for sure.
That's for sure. And just on probably the line that primarily impressed me the most would have been their full back line. The Peter Martin Ryan, and Paul Plower. I thought they were ultra impressive throughout, because Turlough's attack is like, when we just kind of look at the names here, like, well, not even the full forward line, but if you're Killian Hurneys, your Damien Hollands, your Conor Shaughnessy's, your Brian Canlon, say, like, serious intermediate level players, like. And I think now, in fairness, they scored between them, they scored. Killian Hurney shot 3 points and Damien Holland bagged 2. But Conor Shaughnesy was on the fringes for a lot of it, and so too was Brian Canlon. Like, they didn't wield the same influence, because the boys were so defensively solid. I thought Martin Ryan was excellent. He was the real, a real kind of leader back there. And Peter Martin looks a revelation back there at full back as well. And like, none of these lads that look any way out of place in senior hurling whatsoever. Like, it's just like they could have easily gone up 2 years ago, never mind last year.
Yeah.
And this year, if anything, it looks like those years have actually stood to them, and because they now they have Connaughton available, a year adults hurling behind them. Same with McLean, same with Walsh now, and they'll be lads that will probably be starters next year. And looking to make a real impact at senior hurling. Like, if anything, I know it was heartbreaking for them for the last 2 years, but maybe not going up might have been actually kind of a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, it at times, like I could not, even now, if they happen to get up this year, I should say they're not up yet. They still have to win a final, which one. It's not as easy. It's not as easy. It's easier said than done, should we say? But if they were to get up, like, I couldn't see them getting relegated in their first year anyway. I'd be amazed if they were.
Yeah, no, the thing is, if they're to beat Mulcullen in the final and go up, they're going up to senior with their best team. So if they went up with the same team this year, you have those lads, the younger lads you mentioned, they're getting their debuts against quality senior teams that are a step above anything they play in intermediate. Whereas now, I don't know, they're still going up at the playing teams the same caliber should they win the next day if they're senior next year, but those lads now have the experience at least of intermediate and the step up that is, and then it makes the next step that bit easier to do, having played that level for this year. But even still, like, they're now competing in minor A semi-finals, and the same will move on to 131, and that's worth an awful lot too going forward. It's,
for sure.
It doesn't magically happen that these lads appear in year out and they just pop onto the intermediate team. And that, if you're producing players that caliber, the results will be there to see. Proof in the pudding, would say, at underage level, and they're showing that now. Kilkenny wouldn't always have, but for the last 5 or 6 years they've been consistently competing in A and doing well in it, which only lends itself well for the future. But as you're saying on the full back line, Peter Martin going back there was probably out of necessity more than anything else, in that Martin Ryan was he was a long-term injury for them at the start of the year, and he's been their full back for a fair few years at this stage. So you lose a full back of that caliber that's nailed down the position for so long. It's it can be quite a daunting task for a management team to have to fill it. But in fairness to Peter Martin, he's got the size. Well, he's got the height for it, not necessarily the physical size for it, but he doesn't come across like a light fella that he is. There's a bit of power to him, a bit of go to him, but there's kind of ambition in him, and that he wants to be on the ball, he wants to attack the ball. You can really see that in him the last day, and he's a good ball player too, and he's really clever on the ball. You could see when he was under pressure, he was hitting one-handed flick passes down out the side. Very, very intelligent stuff, rather than trying to take a big wind up and getting hooked and turned over out in your own sideline. Really intelligent. He didn't need to have the cleanest of strike. He just needed to get the yard or two to the next man, who could then work it out the field, which was really impressive to see, I thought.
Yeah, and there was always Conor Caulfield, Paul Uniacke, or Ulton McGlynn there ready to take it if it wasn't his brother Ian. Finally we'll wrap up on Turlough. Like, last year they brought two or three lads that made it onto the senior team. Would you see any lads maybe making a step up next year that you kind of caught your eye, or do you think, like, just kind of looking at the team there, just there's been some impressive performances of them, down to the last year. But I suppose one thing is they're actually they're blessed with talent at the moment, and it'll, for any of them lads to push through, it'll take, it'll take serious going to knock out one of them lads that are on the senior team at the minute.
Definitely, yeah. There was a number of really impressive performances and performers you've seen the kind of the lads. The Barry Cannon's probably the most notable one that's taking the step up, and you're competing for man of the match in the county senior semi-final this year, which is fair going in a year. Aaron Shaughnessy was a midfield, big physical player, and lots of hurling in him. I thought he was really, really good. Looks like a lad that could make that step up. Dara Joyce, Dara Whelan, two fine hurlers that were good in spells. The last, they probably didn't have their best games. They probably tell you that themselves. But two good talents that were on the team last year as well and didn't quite make the step up this year. But you're always looking for one or two every year, and they'll have a full sort of pre-season, please God, next year, and plenty of league games before championship starts. So that's kind of the time where you're on your stripes and you try to make an impression for the management, and then if you play well in those games and you hold your place in those games, you're starting for the first round of senior. That's the way it works. In fairness, the lads in Turlough, they will reward you if you're performing. They will play. They're not afraid to throw in those lads as they've shown this year.
That's for sure. Then moving on to the second intermediate semi-final, Mike Cullen 16 points, Clymer 1-9. I suppose the one at the start, the one for Clymer was very, very late. It kind of, the game was gone for them at that point. So if anything, it just kind of put a bit of gloss on the scoreboard. We know ourselves, we spoke about it before, but it wasn't the prettiest to watch us. We'll put it that way. It was it was a hard fought game, like lots of rucks, lots of win your own ball, and you know what I mean. Like it was one of those really. I suppose Mike Cullen always looked that bit better. Even I know Clymer took a lead in at half time, but Mike Cullen to me always looked like they had that extra little bit. I suppose one player that really stood out for Mike Cullen would have been Fionn McDonough on the edge of the square. He was a nightmare to deal with, and he'll be an absolute headache for Kilkenarn. He'll be one player that the Kilkenarn will have to keep their shackles on or have a plan out for, because he looks like a player who could do absolutely untold, as the great Buff would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely, he was very impressive. In fairness, he's a big man, as you can. It's very easy to tell, but he's a good athlete as well. Well able to move, which if you're a full back and tell you Peter Martin he'll be fairly tested the next game, that's for sure. But he's probably the best man, the man best detailed to Markham as well, in fairness, in that he's a similar kind of rangy enough sort of athlete, and we know, as I mentioned there, he's not afraid to go out and attack the ball, which if you're a forward, that's what you don't want. You want the man to give you the step or two and then let you win the ball. But I don't think Martin's going to give him that luxury, which should make for a very, very interesting duel, that actually, But because you could see he had the edge and pace on Owen Fahey, like no question about it. But saying that, when they got into a tight sort of a tussle, Owen Fahey was well able to hold his own too, But McDonough got out in space onto the ball and turned to goal, and that's when he gave him the bother. And if he does that against anyone, he's going to create a problem, and he's going to draw frees. So it's a matter of not leaving him that space and that time to get the ball up in his hand, turn, have a look at you, are you open, then have a go at you. So there's no more than Kilkenarn. There's change in that Mike Cullen team, and that you've the injection of youth, and they're bringing in county minors of similar calibre to what Kilkenarn are bringing in Colin Cunningham and Ian Davern, both of whom were really, really impressive the last day. And they're for any team to be bringing in players of that calibre, especially intermediate teams like or senior B teams, smaller clubs, like it's worth an awful lot to you. And they were two lads, so I was really impressed with the last day as well. But Clymer made it very difficult for them. It certainly wasn't an easy game by any manner of means. And Clymer heard well in the first half, like to be fair to them, and they were value for their halftime lead. But just Michael were a different team in the second half, in fairness, and probably showed more like what they were capable of. But saying that, they tagged on 4 or 5 points in the first 7 or 8 minutes of the first half, and then kind of lulled again for 10 or 15 minutes. They never killed off Clymer, which is a bit of a worry. But certainly that period just after half time, if they're producing that for most of the games against Kilkenarn, they're certainly in with a major shout, that's for sure.
Yeah, just on that, the second half, I suppose, scoring 10 points to 1-2. So if you're only finishing with 1-2, it's always going to be very difficult, especially in the county semi-final, to come away with the win. One very interesting battle was probably McDonough and Andy Carey there. It was looked good in the plenty of there was fireworks between the two of them at all. But I suppose one thing when Clymer were struggling in the second half, I thought maybe they could have shifted Carey out towards maybe wing forward for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, maybe to win a puck out and maybe test Donoghue maybe with something different inside, because he was starved the ball. Like when he actually got possession in his hand, he looked capable of taking on a score here or there. But the problem was they just didn't get enough of ball into him in the second half. Yeah, it wasn't a bad, like, well, should I say, it wasn't absolutely horrendous performance in the second half by Climber by any stretch of the imagination. They made it very difficult for Mike Cullen. Like that's the kind of team Climber are, isn't it? Really, like, you know, they're dogged. You know what you're going to have to bring. You're going to have to you're going to be in for a physical battle anyway, because geez, they were bringing some lads off the bench there. I'd say they were 6'3", 6'4", like absolute tanks that were, you know, able to put themselves about. Mike Cullen will be worried though but I suppose the injuries there again, like it's just more Niall Mannion going off. He never looked right the whole way through it. He wasn't moving freely, and I think he was withdrawn at half time. And then I suppose Ian O'Neill, who got a serious, what looked like he was in serious trouble at the end of the first half. Like I said, geez, there's no way he's coming out. He somehow soldiered on, managed to finish out the last 2 minutes until half time, and then, you know, before eventually it looked like a shoulder injury where he kind of got milled towards the end, and he had to be withdrawn. Like there's not a whole lot of time now between the say semi-final and final, so to have a chance against Kilkenarn, they'll need those two right, like, you know, because they're two of their absolutely key players.
Yeah, well, that gives them an extra cause to hope their footballers pull it off next weekend, isn't it? You know, because they could definitely do it the extra week. Because in Newman went off, and geez, I'd say he hasn't walked too much the last day or two since you know, I'd say, you know, but
that's for sure.
And we know the quality he has. And gone back centre back. It's an intelligent sort of move, because he's a guy who can really dictate a game from back there, you know, especially Northern Kilkenarn, because they now have that bit of talent up front with Colin Cunningham coming in, that they can maybe afford to bring him back, whereas other years he was at midfield or he was centre forward and they needed him in the scoring stakes, where they don't need him so much now, because Sean McDonough is developing into a fine club forward, and Keane Fall in the same way. I was impressed with him at times, you know. Probably didn't have quite the end product that he would have hoped for. There was some really positive signs that, you know, he could be very dangerous and another cause a few headaches for Kilkenarn ahead of them. And they've got a bit of talent. They've got lads who can come in and make an impact too, which is worth an awful lot. They're probably both two of the best equipped squads in intermediate, which is it's worth a lot, you know, and because they had lads coming in like Chris Hurney came on there at half time for Mannion and did quite well, you know.
Yeah.
So it's quite positive all around, in fairness to them. But in saying that, they'll be looking for more of what they produce just after half time. They'll know themselves they need to produce more of that in the final. And I think, to be fair, Kilkenarn are a team that will, you know, that kind of hurling, there'll be more open sort of hurling in it, and it will be a better game. It'll be a good final, I think. To be honest, I think it will. And, you know, both of them will like to have a go off each other. And I think we have a good final to look at, I think, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just people were speaking about the unpredictability of the intermediate championship this year. But we're left with two of the favourites from the outset left in it again. So, and it's probably no surprise really. Just on Climber, then I suppose they're a rural club. They're facing their own challenges. They seem to be down one or two every year. Like even this year again, they were missing Killian O'Hara, Joey Starr, maybe, you know, there was Aidan McDonough there. There's three players that have kind of soldiered with them the last few years, and if you take three starters from maybe the last few years, and suddenly they're not there anymore. But in fairness to them, they're consistent now the last couple of years, and they know what they're going to bring. And one player, like we both earmarked him this year on our team of the week selection, was the goalie, the O'Grady. Wow, he's an absolutely fantastic keeper. He's definitely one of the best in Galway anyway. Never mind the intermediate championship between senior and intermediate, and they've got plenty of promise there, because there was a few young lads out there as well who stood up and were counted.
Yeah, no, definitely no. And yeah, he made a brilliant save early enough on, which was very important for them at the time. No, there was kind of the lads there, like a lot of these lads would have done well underage, because they have had plenty of underage success at minor B and under 21Bs and that over the last number of years, you know. So it's actually been surprising in a lot of cases that they haven't been more successful and more of those players transferred over to the intermediate team, but there's plenty of talent in there, like, like Jason Broderick is he's got plenty of talent, but I suppose he kind of shot 3 or 4 early wides that were, those ones that you have a percentage shots, like, if they went over, they're worth an awful lot. They're worth more than a point in many respects. When they go wide, they drain a bit from a team as well, So it's pretty a case of harnessing the talent that you clearly have, and I suppose trying to kind of realising where you're at and realising the other players that are around you and trying to bring them that bit more into the game, because they're not going to go over 9 times out of 10 a lot of days, But plenty of other talent there too. David Daly, I said before, I thought he had a very good second half when a lot of things were going against them. Jack O'Mara, Shane Tracy, these sort of fellas, they had good games, So yeah, like looking at the team, if they keep those fellas around, and Keary is worth an awful lot for them as well, having him there. He was away travelling for a good number of years, I know. Himself and Donoghue did a great battle, as you mentioned, and Keary probably had the better of it early on, but Donoghue got scripts on him then after that, in fairness, had a great game. But they still have, like, Anthony Callaghy started for them corner forward. He was a fella on the minor B team that won. Did they win it, or did Clonmara beat them in the final? I can't quite remember. There only 2 or 3 years ago. Ron Egan came on as well, scored a great point. He would have been on that team. No more than Jack O'Mara, So those fellas are starting to integrate into the team, and you'll be hoping a couple more of them might break through in the next year or two. And if you get 2 or 3 more in, it adds a lot to the setup, in fairness. So it's just a case for them. It's a good year for them, like, considering they were nearly written off in many quarters, ourselves included. We thought they were destined for relegation going into the last round, in fairness, and then they flipped it on its head and put in a serious performance against Turlough. So it's a case of building on this and trying to add in a couple more faces, and keeping the faces they already had, keeping them all there, and just adding to it for next year, and hopefully take it up another level,
Yeah, you mentioned relegation there. We'll move on finally to the intermediate relegation final now.
Yeah.
Well, there's a caveat there. We don't know whether there will be relegation yet or not this year. There's kind of like the speculation kind of out there that the county board might be wanting to balance the intermediate championship to 16 teams and keep the same format as this year. So with that, maybe perhaps Ceylon could be given a reprieve after their 3-15 to 1-11 loss at the hands of Spittle. Now that obviously is not set in stone, and that's just pure speculation. It could easily be, if they wanted it, they could be the junior A runner up as well. That could hypothetically come up. That's up for what the hurling committee and the county officials to decide. And sure, we'll have no part of that. But impressive looking scoreline. Obviously, neither have seen this game, but just on paper, it looks like an impressive win for Spittle.
Definitely, I was surprised with the manner of it. To be honest, I think I probably would have predicted Ceylon to win it, but I always would have said there'd be nothing in it, because they're 2 very even teams, and both have shown up very well in certain games. Not probably as consistently as they would have liked, but would have shown up well in certain games. This year, we on Spidgel, very impressive the first day, and probably not so good the day against She, would say, when they played, and vice versa. Ceylon put in their best performance first day as well, and gradually got that bit worse as every game went on, and it's kind of culminated in a pretty poor enough showing by the looks of it here, in fairness. And even though that Kevin Brady was back from back start, and he obviously would have been a big boost for them. One of those fellas that wouldn't take much training to get himself back up to match speed, in fairness, But no, very impressive showing by Spidgel, and more like the kind of performance we would have seen from them against Carnmore. So yes, they'll be delighted that for a lot of teams, any year you stay up, it's worth a bit, because in intermediate, as we know, the line is so fine that they were Northern, I suppose, Climber at the other end of it. Spidgel were probably favourites alongside Kilkenarn. They were favourites for second spot in your group going into the last round there, and then they found themselves back where they are now, just on a couple of points and scoring difference, so can go wrong very easily. But it's a case of, once you right the ship and manage to stay up, you can forget about it for next year again and try build forward again. So yeah, no, impressive enough shown from them, in fairness.
I suppose, as always, Spidgel's biggest problem would be they wouldn't have everyone available for the whole championship, we'll say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there might be lads that might be focusing on football for the time being. But when they get their best 15 on the field, they're a real threat to any team in intermediate. Like if Cylon were given a reprieve, it wouldn't surprise you to see them make a knockout stages next year. Or at the same with Unspidgel, there's absolutely nothing between. There's probably maybe the top 3 or 4 teams in intermediate this year. And then there's probably a drop off where maybe anyone could realistically beat anyone on any given day. I suppose just the old ease for Spidgel, I think, what was it, 2-6 between them from play they scored, and it's serious going between Anton, Finian, and Cormac, and Liam Kelly centre back as well. Just from reading reports, he was supposed to be excellent there. Like, you go through their team, and they have a lot of fine hurlers, and we haven't even mentioned O'Huckey yet. Like, who's he scored 5 points and 2 of them from play. Like, they're racking up plenty of scores from play from a lot of different areas there. By the looks of things, it seems to be everyone from midfield up seems to score from play. And 315. It's a great sign for them. But again, it's just such a tough act because they're such a small club trying to balance out hurling and football demands. It's this year above any year because it's relentless. It's a relentless championship between the both of them. Like, it's I suppose they'd be delighted they have this relegation sorted anyway. Now it's all focused on the football, you know what I mean, and whatever the crack is there, we just don't know. But there are 2 teams definitely that you wouldn't be surprised to see, maybe making the last 8 and maybe perhaps going further next year, because there's players there, even on a sideline point of view, young lads as well, like say your Keelan Cravens there, who have another year hurling at adult level, and like he's a serious detail when he's on form, like. And Cylon have plenty of quality in their own right as well. Like, you have your Oren Martin there, and there's plenty of other lads. Like, there's as you said, Kevin Brady. Jesus, to be able to bring a man like that back, man that's hurled senior hurling like at the highest level in Galway, and there'd be certainly no problem with his stick work ever anyway. Whether the legs mightn't be the same as they would have been, say, 5 years ago, that's another thing. But we don't know what's going to happen yet, but sure, we'll just have to wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, the thing is, whatever happens on Spidgel, can forget about it anyhow, because they've held up there into the bargain, and they can rest easy for the next few weeks.
That's it. And with that, we've another show down. I suppose we'll be back next week again, previewing the county final, and we'll probably look back at the Cappy and Thomas's game at this weekend. As always, if you ever want to drop us a comment or complaints, can go to Patrick now, our chunky who's not with us this week. I'll deal with all the compliments if you want to throw them my way. The lads are more than happy to deal with complaints or anything at all you might want to. Thanks again for tuning in, and thanks, Patrick, for joining me, and we'll see you again next week.
Good job.